Welcome to this week's discussion on do you live in a society of sin? All sin results from the absence of love. Some sin is individual, and some sin can be a society of sin. When society in general becomes accepting of evil that they did not tolerate in the past, those become social sins. This community could be a family, a city, a country, anywhere in the world. We see this especially once a country becomes communist, socialist, or a dictatorship. Rights begin to be taken away. Most are a combination of all three, with very few, if any, that are entirely within the definition of any one of them. The differences between these different forms of government become very difficult to distinguish. One of the first rights to be taken away is the right to practice faith. Churches will disrupt the principles of those oppressive societies. The late Bishop Fulton Sheen once said, "The fact the enemies of God must face is that modern civilization has conquered the world, but in doing so has lost its soul. And by losing its soul, it will lose the very world it gained. And as religion fades, so will freedom, for only where the Spirit of God is there liberty." One could question what it means to live in a modern civilization. I read somewhere a long time ago that as those settlers from all over the world began to populate this country that is now the United States, many would refer to the indigenous people already living here as uncivilized. I believe that there was more sharing and less greed at that time than among the so-called uncivilized than there is in the current so-called civilized society. As a way of pointing out what I mean by social sin, I would like to share a few examples from the petitions from my morning prayers. When we, as a society, become accepting of sinful policies, and in some cases even prefer them to what is good, we are choosing self over love of others, and it becomes socially accepted, but it is still sin. There are only two choices when confronted with this. We can either go along with the evil of our society and become a part of the problem, or do what we can, in a loving way, to get rid of it. Being neutral and not getting involved is also part of the problem and is not what God calls us to do. This is a sin of omission. The following is an excerpt from three of my petitions that I bring to God every day. I also pray God's guidance for me to bring only those petitions that He calls me to bring to Him. The basic thought of these petitions is that I ask God to take all sins that take away human dignity and heal us of those desires. Without human dignity, there is no love. These are some of the sins that make it more difficult for those of us trying to answer God's call to love one another as He loves us. These three petitions are for the removal of the sins that I see as standing in my way. You may find even more. These are sins that, when we accept them as normal practice, prevent us from answering God's call to love one another as He loves us. The first petition I bring to God every day is to take away our disregard of human life. We do this through abortion. We also do this through wars or invasions. We do this through crimes involving murder. In general, we want what we want, and we don't care who it hurts, as long as we get what we want. If necessary, we find a way to get rid of those that stand in our way out of selfishness. Our greed for power and money is more important than a human life, and that is what Satan wants us to believe. None of these things are for the benefit of anyone, but for our own selfishness, and definitely not for the common good. The second petition is our mistreatment of others as a society through various forms of slavery. Many countries have created a slave trade by not enforcing immigration laws. This allows people from other countries to enter their country illegally and then have laws that prevent them from being able to work legally. They are forced to earn a living as best they can, always with the threat of deportation or other cruelties. I have heard stories of contractors hiring laborers to do the hard work no one else wants to do, and as the project is near completion, the contractor will call the immigration authorities to tell them there are illegal people working there. The authorities arrived at the job site and the workers scattered so they would not be caught. The contractor got the job done and never had to pay anyone. Some forms of slavery are even more blatant. Human trafficking is rampant in the world. People are attacked, drugged, and sold like cattle. Some are even children who never had an opportunity to begin living yet, nor most likely will they ever. In 2022, there was a soccer World Cup in Qatar, a country in the Middle East. New stadiums had to be built. They use forced labor for doing the work. If they died, they are thrown out with the trash. It was estimated that about 4,000 people died to prepare for those games. I am a soccer fan, but no game is worth that. All life is important, especially to the God that created that life and to Jesus who suffered that all those lives may be saved. The third petition is discrimination. I could never understand why we are always trying to find differences between groups of people. We always seem to want to be viewed as better than others for whatever reason we can conjure up. Even in schools, children are divided by the smart ones and dumb ones, or the pretty ones and the not so pretty ones. I ask God to remind each one of us that no matter where we are from in the world, God created every person on earth in his image and likeness. This is regardless of what color we are. This is regardless of what language we speak or where we are from. This is regardless of what gender we are or even whether we believe in God or not. God loves all of us regardless of all that, even when we choose not to love him back. When we live in places that allow horrible sins like this to happen, we are either a part of the problem or we are with God and peacefully protest it. As the world becomes darker, we must make choices that might not be very comfortable. There are people suffering all over the world today. Do we just stay in our little safety bubble, or do we stand up for God? We might not be able to do everything, but we all can do something. As in the parable of the 10 talents, regardless of how many talents we were awarded, will we choose to invest our talents wisely and be called a good and faithful servant or an evil, wicked servant? Which will you choose today? Have a blessed week. If you would like to receive these weekly discussions, please subscribe below. You can also feel free to share any comments.